Thanks for spending time with us. It's such an interesting panel. We have the leaders from some emerging companies from about food tech. We also have some perspective from the venture capitalists. So it's a very interesting topic. The format of this panel discussion is that I will have each panelist to share about 3 minutes about who they are, their company status, and their journey over the years. And then we have some questions and to discuss about the topic, the challenges, barriers, and then we will open to the floor. Let me, what's the next slides? Okay. Let me introduce, okay, yeah, this is me. I'm the co-founder of Good Morning Silicon Valley. We are a platform to connect community, connect investors, startups, as well as the audience. Let me introduce my co-moderator, as well as one of the key panelists today, Jinchen Zou. She's online. Can I see her? Can you? She's on the East Coast. Whoa, yeah. Hello, Jinchen. Can you hear me? Great. S2G is a multi-stage venture capital firm focusing on agriculture, food technology, oceans, and so on. And Jinchen is associate at S2G Ventures. She conducts research evaluation of potential investment and support S2G Ventures portfolio companies. Prior to joining S2G, she advised on climate finance transactions at Pollination Group and served private, public, social sector clients on business strategy at McKinsey & Company. Hello, Jinchen. Hold on, okay.
Wait a second. Okay, please continue.
Great. I mean, I was just saying, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Michelle, for the introduction. And Michelle, I'll wrap up at the end a little bit, but I'm happy to share a little bit more then as well about S2G when we get to that part. But yeah, really excited for the discussion today. We're a food and ag-focused investor, and sort of this is what we think about day in, day out. So really excited to hear from the panel and dive into some pretty interesting topics.
Great. So we will definitely go back to Jinchen later, and let me introduce our next panelist first, Ray Chu. Ray is the founder and CEO of Calyx. It's an AI-based farming solution company. They provide a proprietary sensor solution to collect data on live production and offer insights. Because of his innovation, he earned the Forbes 30 Under 30 in Energy list in 2023. Hello, Ray. Hello.
Good to be here.
Can you share with us? Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Ray, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, Ray. Can you share with us your insights, your journey?
I think you're on mute.
You're on mute. Hello, Ray. Can you share with us your? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Ray.
Hi, I can hear you. Okay.
Yes, Ray. Can you share with us your insights, your company status?
Are we gonna do the introduction here, or
Yes,
we're just gonna go over? We're just gonna go around first, and then we'll have time for each one to do the intro.
Yeah. Now it's your intro. Can you share now?
We're having trouble on Zoom here in the room.
Okay. Technical issues.
What?
Can you hear us right now?
I can hear you.
Okay, Ray, yeah, just would you like to introduce a little bit about yourself and also the company?
Okay, we're gonna do it right now, or
Yes. Now. Yes.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. This is Ray, co-founder and CEO of Calix. My background is chemical engineering. I got my bachelor degree at National Taiwan University, and then I went to Berkeley for my master, for my graduate degree. I was graduated back in 2014, and I joined Lawrence Berkeley National Lab as a research affiliate over there. And that's basically where I met my co-founder, Vincent. So we started the company back in the time around 9-10 years ago. It's almost getting to the 10 years. So what Calix does is that we are pretty much a software hardware integration is a deep tech company. And we solely focusing on the live production of animals. The solution that we develop is specifically designed for the animal agricultural settings. We address issues such as the cost, scalability, and also the robustness of the solution in the market right now. So we basically, what we do is that we provide the growers and the poultry integrators, the companies, with our proprietary monitoring solutions to help them reliably collect the data in the live production and also offer insights to them to help them transition from the traditional way of monitoring to a more AI-based precision animal farming solution, and also pretty much to empower them, the growers, to make the data-driven decisions that enhance their the production efficiency, the processes, and also to help them get to more optimal results in the animal health, animal welfare, and the profitability.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
Okay, let me introduce our next panelist, Dr. Renyu Huang. Dr. Huang is the co-founder and the CEO of Lypid, a leading food tech startup in alternative fat. If you ever have a chance to go to Louisa Coffee, you can try their product, partner with Lypid. It's very interesting. And Dr. Huang holds a Ph.D. in chemical engineering from Cornell, and he was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2022. Dr. Huang.
Thanks, Michelle, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Jinchen Zou. I'm a chemical engineer by training as well, and I was in Cornell doing a lot of sustainability research, especially focusing on energy. And in 2019, I got an award, commercial fellow, by NSF and Cornell together to try to explore what we can bring to the different industry, but at the same time address the climate issue. And that's the point I find our food industry is very interesting, and there are a lot of things we can do in the food industry to flip it. Yeah, and that's how I decided to start a Lypid, our company focusing on fat alternative. And the reason is that for the plant-based meat or alternative meat industry, people usually just working on protein. That's why even some of them still call it alternative protein industry, but it's not true. In the meat, you can see there are a lot of different components. There are fats, there are fibers, there are tissues, so there's a lot of things in it. Yeah, so that's how we started Lypid, and in the past 2 years, we find out a really great way in demonstration that our technology can be applied in this industry. So basically, we create a vegan fat that can perform like animal fat. So in terms of texture, mouthfeel, melting points, and flavor, it just tastes pretty similar to like the solid animal fat tissue. Yeah. And this year we leveraged this to launch a new product line. It's the world's first pork belly, a whole cut pork belly. And I think this is a really great demonstration, like if we have those key ingredients, how we can enable new products on the market. And we launched it with several partners in Taiwan, like Louisa Coffee, and we also launched it here in the SF with 2-3 restaurants. So if you're in the city, you can visit West Burger, Sky Cafe, or Kelly Alley. You can get a chance to try some of our products. Yeah, so that's what we are working on, and I'm happy to be here.
Wow, I'm really looking forward to the plant-based pork belly. It's very interesting. Okay, our next panelist is Dr. Huan Yan. Dr. Yan is a leader in redefining the future of foods, and she leads multiple functions covering analytical chemistry, data science, food safety, and internal ingredient quality in research and development at Impossible Foods. Let's welcome Dr. Yan.
Hi everyone, nice to see you here. Nice to see you all online. Hope you can hear us okay. My name is Huan. I'm with Impossible Foods. I've been with Impossible Foods for almost 8 years now. I have a Ph.D. in chemical physics. I'm currently also pursuing an MBA at UC Berkeley. I'm leading some of the teams in R&D at Impossible, and at Impossible Foods we make plant-based meat. So we have been producing and commercializing our plant-based meat since 2015. So it's been a few years, and now we have a whole portfolio of different plant-based products like Impossible Burger, Impossible Sausage, Impossible Meatballs, Impossible Chicken Nugget. Chicken nugget is my favorite, if you are wondering. Basically, we really try to make plant-based meat that tastes, smells, looks like real meat, so you get that experience when you eat meat, but still get the benefit that's much better for the planet. So I'm very excited to be participating in this panel, and I was almost late because I was driving down from SF. I was there for a conference that is the downstream processing for alternative protein and cellular agriculture. And I totally agree with you in terms of if we look at the plant-based meat space, that solid fat is a big important part of it as well. So I didn't realize like the plant-based, we call it alternative protein, but we should include like fat is definitely a big part. So I agree with you on that. Nice to be here and looking forward to the discussions.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. How many of you have tried the alternative protein? Whoa, we have so many early adopters here. Yeah. Okay, so after the sharing of the panelists, Jinchen, let's get back to you, and we would like to hear your feedback, your insight, probably from the VC's perspective. Okay, probably put highlight on Jinchen. Whoa, over there. Hello, Jinchen, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Very cool. And I think you can really see that everyone's kind of working at different points of the supply chain and different points of the growth journey as well. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think a little bit more of an intro on S2G as well. So we're a venture firm that was founded 10 years ago, focused on food and ag. And since then, we've broadened out to also have an energy and oceans vertical, so a broad climate tech platform. I sit on the food and ag team within S2G Ventures. And our entire thesis is focused on building a more healthy and sustainable planet as it relates to the food system. So as you can see, I mean, a lot of us are working on various aspects of the food supply chain. On our end, we invest everything from how we produce food upstream, whether it's produce or proteins. So looking at producers and growers, but then we are also invested in the midstream supply chain, so looking at a lot of sort of logistics, supply chain tech, planning, softwares, et cetera. And then further downstream, we're invested in sort of more consumer-facing products, ingredient plays, restaurant, retail concepts, and so on. I think the two main driving forces that inform our decision-making today is one on sustainability. So we'll get into a little bit more in the panel, but really people are coming to a point where you're seeing climate change kind of occurring in the broad sort of environmental component, but then at the same time for agriculture, you're seeing limited supply of resources for water and topsoil, et cetera. So, and the population continues to grow. So I think increasingly people are a little more conscious about what they're eating and how that's produced. Back in the 70s, 80s, we used a lot of chemicals on our soil, and we also, highly industrialize our agriculture to make it very efficient, which is great because it fed a lot more people. But at the same time, I think now consumers are having evolving to have a higher bar as people are more health conscious as well, to think about what you're eating, and potentially is there a balance between healthy food and sustainable food as well. So anyway, I just think it's really exciting. We're seeing a lot of innovation in the food space, in the food tech space, whether it's plant-based or cell-based or other types of non-protein related investments as well. So happy to talk about any of those. And then I think with that said, from the venture perspective, it's really exciting to hear from entrepreneurs, from you guys, just on exactly what you're seeing day to day, because everyone kind of wants to support the food transition and drive innovation forward. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of these sort of regulatory barriers, consumer adoption barriers, like long adoption cycles that make it difficult. So I think it'd be really helpful and interesting to hear from you guys as we get into the discussion on what those specific factors are.
Okay, thank you, Jinchen. So let's start our first question. Jinchen, since you are doing the research, what are you noticing the incumbents, the existing players in the food industry? How are they engaging and reacting to the innovations in food technology? Jinchen, do you like to go first? Hello, Jinchen, do you like to go first?
Sure, yeah, Michelle, I think so. You guys are like in and out of mute, so just missed the first part of your question, but you're saying what are you noticing with the incumbents in the food industry? How are they engaging and reacting to the innovations in the food technology? Yeah, for sure. So we try to sort of work with both startups and incumbents, and so we have a corporate development team that's built a pretty large network of corporates across the supply chain, whether they're sort of food processors, traders, or sort of CPG companies are assembling the ingredients into a finished product. And in general, we're seeing, for setting innovation targets as well as sustainability targets at the corporate level to make some of these changes in incorporating innovation into their pipeline before making acquisitions, creating JD, like joint agreement partnerships and co-development partnerships with others. I think in general, I'll just sort of give a brief answer, and I'd love to hear from everyone else. I think we're noticing a lot of receptivity to innovation, as well as willingness to engage, and that's kind of picking up as we're seeing more innovation. But at the same time, I think the market, we've gone through sort of plant-based 1.0 and maybe like 2.0 at this point. So people have also picked up a lot of lessons learned in that journey. So I think corporates are smart and they're engaged, but they're sort of open to partnerships and continued innovation in the space.
Okay, Ray, do you like to say a few words? Hello, Ray. Do you like to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Well, from my perspective, I think I totally agree what Jinchen just mentioned. I think they are pretty open to innovations. They are, when you bring, because this industry is, the food industry is not like, it's not like rocket science or space tech or AI. It's like, pretty traditional, I would say, but like they also in a stage to embrace a lot of innovations and high tech. So I think general they are pretty open to that, but when it comes to the decision making process, it will just take them longer to make any decision, especially in the sales cycles. So typically, like what I would say is like we realize that in order to help them, in order to make them understand your product, your solution, the benefits, and you have to really hold their hand, walk them through the economics of your, what kind of benefits your solution can offer to them, and to really help them and help facilitate the process for them to understand. So that's what we observe in the industry. Yeah, but our space is a little bit different from from Lypid and also the Impossible food. We're more in the traditional protein space.
Okay, thank you, Ray. How about Dr. Yan?
Yeah, I think the innovation definitely very exciting. I think exciting for the incumbent companies as well, and a lot of them they would also have their own internal like new foods or like alternative protein division, try to really like harvest and try to be part of this wave of innovation, which I thought is really cool. Then there's also the piece where from more established companies, then the time it would take. So it's sort of a balance, but at least they are being very innovative, and so like overall, I think this new trend is very exciting.
Thank you. How about Dr. Huang?
Yeah, I would say in the past 2-3 years in the food industry, there are a lot of innovation. People are pretty open to it, but today, people care about budget a lot more. So they really care about unit economics, and they want to see whether there is a practical way that you can bring this technology to the market that can compete with current products under similar price. So I think things change a lot in the past few months, and I won't lie that people still people love innovation, but you have to be practical just under the circumstances, right? And that's what I see from the whole industry. People are changing their strategy on that.
Great. Jinchen, do you have any questions toward the panelists?
Yeah, I think really good points in terms of how quickly things are changing in the marketplace. And then at the same time, working with large corporates as sometimes the only buyers or consumers of services, just because it's so intermediated. So anyway, I'd be curious for all three of you, as you're working on your companies and scaling, what the main barriers you're seeing are. And then, from investors or policymakers or consumers, what are ways in which they should be stepping up or doing a little bit more to help you tackle those barriers?
Would you like to go first?
Ray?
Unmuted.
Yeah, Ray unmuted, so.
Either way, I can go first. I can go first. So, there are two things. Like I think it will really help companies in the space to scale. I think first of all, I don't see a lot of. I think in my my industry or my application, my focus is a little bit different from Lypid and Impossible food. So for us, we're more when it comes to the animal ag tech related investors, there's actually not a lot of ventures in the market, and again, like the traditional VC, they typically they don't understand this market. And first of all, animal agriculture is not really sexy in terms of all the frontier research being poured into. Like for example, the alternative protein, those kind of things is pretty hot right now. So like for us, it's really about it's really like the the resource in capital is not it's not as plenty or as enough as other industry and also other aspects or other sectors in the industry. I think that's one of that. And the other part I would say is really the sales cycles. Like we've noticed that the big companies or the big clients in this space, their sales cycle is pretty long. It's unusually long. And when they actually made a mistake, and before we thought that we can close the customers way faster than what it really is. So and then the other things like because all the industry is actually dealing with a lot of live, like our industry is dealing with a lot of live animals. So the testing is usually involved a longer period of time. And that's something that I think we have to address is that when we have more data and we have more resources, I think we will be able to, cross-reference some of the information that we have, and hopefully we can facilitate that accelerate that process to shorten the sales cycle.
Maybe a quick follow-up for you, Ray. Understanding that you're sort of IoT sensor analytics, kind of the data layer for managing animal agriculture systems. Like what kind of proof points are people asking for, customers are they asking for, and what do you actually need from a resourcing perspective to be able to build that out?
This is also the we are also learning this in the process. So started off as the providing the sensor monitoring tools and also analytical tools. We realized that just by this industry is not like other industry in the market. So we really have to show them the benefits and to really tell them and also put on the papers like, okay, this is what you're looking at, like for example the final flock performance in terms of the body weight, in terms of the saddlement. When you saddle, you're gonna have more, like 10% more meat or 20% more meat, and your feed consumption is gonna be lower. And if you cannot have any correlations about that, you're just providing the sensors and data and kind of analytical results to them. It's just really hard to convince them, because people in this industry, they don't understand how to use the data. They don't have the complete system, or the the system to really help them correlate to other information within their company. So it's kind of, you really have to do all the work for them to prove out to get to the final stage. That's what we observe. Yeah.
I can go. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I think for the challenge, we can just think of how long has the meat industry been developed. Like it's already hundreds of years, and how long has Impossible as a leader in the alternative meat industry being in the war? It's just like less than 10 years, right? So that's the challenge for us. It's pretty obvious. It's the scale up and the unit economics, because what we are competing, the animal meat product is actually be iterated, be improved for hundreds of years in terms of every part of their value chain, right? How do you raise chicken? How do you put them together? How do you even kill them, right? So people find out a really efficient way. That's how we can get those meat in a pretty low price. But for plant-based meat industry, it's still early day, even though it's just 10 years sounds long, but it's still really, really early day comparing with the meat industry. So to get a price parity right now, I think that's something everyone is facing a challenge right now in the whole industry. Yeah. And in terms of how investor can help, I think that's investor probably couldn't help too much on that. In terms of scaling up and maturing the technology, that's what I see most of the founders or the team should address itself or by ourselves. But investor know the market, so I think investor can help more on commercialization. Like how do we find out great partners to prove that this can work out eventually, or how do we convince everyone that we have to be patient enough to keep investing, keep maturing the technology, and one day we can really do the price parity, or at some break point we can find out that. And people always compare this with Tesla vs traditional car, and I see similar scenes in the plant-based meat industry as well. So that's something we can think on. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that as well. So I think in terms of how investors can help, I do feel like the capital part would be helpful for scaling up, right? For the industries, like a young industry like this alternative meat space to further grow and scale up to get to that economy of scale. But I also felt like when we think about scaling up challenges, one thing is the supply, right? So we need to be able to scale enough to have that supply to maybe reach that price parity. Then there's the other part of the demand, right? So if we think about this new industry, we're actually convincing the consumers to change their behavior in a sense, right? So there are early adopters, there's also people who may take a long time, right? So adopting for consumer to change their behavior, it takes time. So how to really understand the consumer so that we could help on the demand side to increase that, I think those would be things to think about.
Yeah, so Jinchen, everybody is asking, can investor help? So from investor's perspective, how can you evaluate the opportunities? How can you balance the impact as well as the returns?
Yeah, and I think, I totally agree with Juan and Jen. There's the supply and demand side, right? When you're evaluating technologies, especially when they're consumer facing, the demand, something that we may or may not be able to control nearly as much, because consumer preferences are what they are. But you're right in that you are able to focus on the supply side, and both your internal unit economics, cost drivers, CapEx requirements, et cetera, whether or not that makes sense for a profitable business model in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's sort of the big thing that investors will look at today, especially given where we are with the capital market cycle, high interest rates, people are less risk tolerant as they are before. And so generally you'll see more venture dollars go towards businesses that have a shorter term timeline towards sort of profitability or cash flow, being cash flow positive. But yeah, at the same time, back in 2021, at the height of the hype cycle, I think everybody was incredibly bullish on a number of technologies that did have dramatic, if they're viable, if they're scaled up, they have dramatic impact on various, whether it's stability or human health. And so, yeah, I think for us, when we're looking at the space, we, I guess as investors, we're sort of entrepreneurs first and technologies first and product market fit first. So if those things make sense, we tend to be a little bit more patient when it comes to supporting investors. And so the idea is if you have a line of sight to better unit economics down the line, then that's something that we're eager to support, even though it might take a little bit of time, versus if it's something that doesn't quite make sense at all, like if it's just, always going to be $5 more expensive than the current alternative, then that's something a little bit harder for us to support.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about alternative protein, and we are lucky to have Impossible Foods as well as Lypid. Maybe the question goes to Dr. Yan. What's the difference between plant-based and cell-based? What's the competition between each of them?
Yeah, so I guess for me, like I'm only sharing my own understanding. This is nothing like official or anything, just like my own understanding of the two industry. I don't think it's competitive. I do feel like there are differences. So for example, plant-based industry, it's plants, right? Like plant-based versus cell culture, there's the cells from animals that are involved in that production process. So I would say cell culture space, they are like slaughter free. That's what they are trying to do, right? So it's still like there's the benefit for that as well, but I don't think they are like plant-based and cell culture, they're like directly competing with each other. I do feel like there are, it's good to have different technologies because we're all both trying to make a greater environmental impact. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, so by definition, it's just a different approach to address the same challenge. Like, how do we find out the more sustainable food, right? Plant-based is made by plants, and cell culture is just made from cells, right? And cell culture is definitely early day that I don't see. There are some products like prototypes on the market, but in terms of scaling it up and to really supply it in a big volume, nobody knows, to be honest. I'm a chemical engineer, and we don't see any previous examples before from all the other industry as well. So it's very hard to say. But I would say fermented or fermentation-based products is another approach that was not mentioned here, but it's really interesting that that could be something that could be more approachable and more practical that people can buy today already on the market.
Yeah, I think on the fermentation side, because a lot of the alternative proteins are actually produced by precision fermentation.
And Jinchen, have you noticed any other technologies or breakthrough in alternative protein?
Yeah, totally. I think the three approaches, right, so cell-based, plant-based, and fermentation is kind of the three pillars or production mechanisms to get alt protein. I would say the plant-based is the most mature and people are looking for cheaper, faster, and better today. So cleaner nutritional labels, tastier and closer to the texture that you want to get, and cheaper, so closer to what you pay for conventional meats. On the fermentation side, I think would be curious to hear what your thoughts are too. I think the main thing here is cost. It's still, you're essentially using targeted bacteria or other ways of fermenting to create functional proteins that you're locating for whether it's cheese or sort of other types of protein or fat. And so I think that is a matter of like what people are putting in. You still require a lot of capex of steel and tanks and stuff like that for different types of technologies. And then the unit economics have to work there. But pretty exciting because there's a lot of different ways you can go through mass fermentation or precision fermentation. And on the cell-based side, it is very early. I think this year we've got the first FDA, USDA approval for a cell-based product to come to the market in the US. So consumers are going to be trying it for the first time in the US. Singapore has been a little bit ahead there. They've got some restaurants that have had based protein. But yeah, the question there is just, is that, viability? It's expensive to produce. You have higher cost growth media. You're essentially growing cells over and over and over again. So I think we'll see what, I think this year for us, it's kind of a moment of consumer sentiment testing. And then companies are continuing to work to bring down the cost of production and sort of have a scale-up roadmap that makes sense.
Yeah, cost is definitely an issue, but we are looking forward to the different technologies and breakthrough. And Yeah.
If I may, can I just also add, I think on the precision fermentation side, yeah, overall the CapEx investment to build out the line is very high. But I was at the conference, I met someone from Israel. They are actually, that company is making sweet proteins. And so I was asking what's the economics and how does it compare to sugar? And they're actually saying their price would actually be lower than sugar because their inclusion rate could be very low because it's like 1, I don't know, gram of sweet protein could be equal to like 5 kilograms of sugar or something like that, right? So with the new technologies, I am hopeful that hopefully there are ways to reduce the costs, and that would also be another way. But I definitely agree from a scale-up perspective, microbial fermentation is an expensive process. But it could also add additional benefit in terms of maybe if you have ingredients that you use at very low inclusion rate, so that may still make economical sense, and that would still give you like a supreme product.
Yeah, thank you. Let me go to Calyx Ray, because Calyx is in different area. It's like a niche market. So Ray, from your experience, how can you develop the market from a niche to a bigger market?
Well, I don't think it's a niche market. Conventional food is still a big average. It's not, it's just there's not a lot of innovations happen in this market. A lot of, it's pretty much controlled by the legacy company, like they're big enough, but they don't do much on the innovations. Part of the reason is they just don't have, enough people, enough talents. They won't be able to pour enough talents into the industry. So when we come to this market, the biggest factor or driver for us to scale is really we have to provide something that they've been. Definitely has to be innovative, right? It has to be innovative. It has to be. We have to do the right market positioning. We have to make sure the products that we develop is something that will, it's something that will be useful by the by the growers, by the poultry companies in this market. It cannot just be like, oh, I see, for example, in the autonomous industry, autonomous car industry, you find like, oh, this feature, this technology is really good, and it's gonna be, you think it's gonna be really helpful for the for the chicken business, right? You brought the autonomous car tech, integrate together with the robot, and then finally you made it really, it's kind of like a small car, the robot kind of things. Then you want to sell it into the market. It's not gonna work because eventually you didn't really consider from the user's perspective. So I think that's really important when you trying to bring innovation into the market. We have to do a lot of research on the market. We have to really talk to the users, understand their unit economics, understand which areas their issue is, their problem. Because in this industry, like the skill, the return on investment that they're looking at is very different from other industry. Like they're not looking at like 10 times, 20 times. So when you present them like 10 times, 20 times on the product that you're gonna offer to them, they'd be like, they will have really high expectations. So if you won't be able to make it, that kind of return on investment to them, it's gonna be a really big problem, because for most of the innovations or the products they're having in the market, like they got from their suppliers, from some of the innovative companies in terms of vaccine drugs, like they're looking at anywhere between 2 to 4%, and then 2 to 4 times, and then 4 times kind of our ROI is already pretty good to them. So definitely market research is a key thing. When it comes to scaling up, bringing innovations into a market of traditional protein or conventional protein.
Jinchen, do you like to share your feedback or ask any questions?
Yeah, I guess we can sort of dive into a bit of a next section of the discussion. So as you're thinking about commercializing your products, how do you go to market? What's the best way to get consumers excited and grow demand? And Ray, in your case, given that it's a fairly oligopolistic it with, you know, big corporates and concentration, how do you navigate that channel dynamic?
Who would like to go first?
Whoever wants to start, can start.
I guess for me, I don't have much to add because we, like at Impossible Foods, we have like big, really talented like marketing, sales, business teams. So I have nothing to do with that, but I think they're doing a really good job in terms of looking into strategies. So for example, when we first launched our first product, we started with partnering with the celebrity chef restaurants in New York City. There were a lot of social media coverage. There's a lot of media coverage to try to create that new food and that. So like throughout the years, I do think our sales marketing team, they're doing a really good job in terms of start from food service, and then when during COVID, when no one went to restaurants, then our company were able to quickly pivot to retail and really build out that distributions with different retailers, grocery stores, and being able to really have good coverage. So.
Yeah. I think for Jinchen's questions, it can be understood as you have to think about what's your cost, like what's the product's cost. So you can think about go-to-market strategy, right? Or even growing demand of consumers, because for different costs, it will just make everything different. Yeah, like as what Juan just say, like for Impossible or for precision fermentation, if the cost is pretty high, maybe the low inclusion rate make more sense, then the go-to-market strategy will be very different from a plant-based totally plant-based product with very low cost. Yeah, so that's something I feel like that's usually the dynamic will change, depends on what's your product and who should be your target audience. You can find out after you know your unique economics. Yeah, and on the other hand, I also feel pretty interested, like Impossible definitely set a pretty great standard on working with celebrity chef. But if everyone is doing the same approach, that's my question, does it even work today? Like all the plant-based or all the alternate meat companies doing the same thing, working with key QSR or key celebrity chef, does it really work right now? That's the part I'm not sure. Yeah, but it did work 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Yeah, but right now I would say it's a big question mark for me. Yeah.
Did Ray like to add any comments?
Well, I think definitely we're not facing consumer that directly. We're more on the upstream side, but that like in our case, the message to consumer definitely would help, right? So, for example, the growing awareness in the animal welfare and animal health is actually a driver for the precision animal farming market. So, because people like they have this growing interest and growing awareness in the animal welfare. So the retailers are actually setting up some requirements for their suppliers in the market for from the egg layer plants, from the broiler farms. So they are now like required to do some monitoring on the certain chemicals for their environment in order to become a supplier for some retailers like Whole Food or other markets. So I think this is definitely will help, but like from in terms of the go-to-market for our industry is really we have to like, doesn't matter what kind of product that we're trying to bring together or trying to develop for the traditional protein companies like Tyson, Purdue, Monterey. It always has to do something with the with the key metrics that they care about, right? How many tons of the the meat, how much meat they can produce in a week, a month, and then how much percentage increase that you can help them with your solution. I think that's really the key thing. So right now our strategy is more of like we started we started to focus more on the animal health, animal performance part, and then we collaborate with the companies that makes the vaccine kind of product, the animal additive or nutritional kind of products, and really to work with them together because they have the data on the animal health part, but we have the data on what's going on in the field. So by combining and do some correlation of this data, we can actually get really interesting results. One of the examples that we do is like, so the coccidia, right? Coccidia is one of the big problem in the poultry industry. And so there's a company, the data company, they can actually, plot out the coccidia kind of infectious the map for each cycle of the flock, right, of the birds. And so they know when the disease is coming, and then when the vaccines work, they get into infect, but they don't know what's going on in the environment. So we actually trying to do a pilot together. We're trying to correlate what's going on in the farm and what's happening down in the couple of weeks or a week, 6 days later on the animal health. To try to pinpoint if there's any relationship or any correlations in between. Okay. That would directly impact the customer's decision because that's actually money, right? They care about the livability of the flock. They care about the growth curve, the growth rate, daily weight gain. But when you come to them and just bring them, hey, here's the sensor data, here's your environment, your temperature, your humidity, your ammonia, your carbon dioxide, and you tell them like this is your the body temperature of the birds, this is your activity. They don't care. Like nobody draws that conclusion for them right away, you won't be able to make the conversation happen, or you won't be able to move that conversation forward.
Okay, thank you, Ray. We have one last question, but before that, I would like to open to the floor. Maybe we can pick up one question from the floor, or if there are any questions from online. Anybody like to introduce yourself or ask a question? Anyone? Yes.
Hi, my name is Phil Abraham. I'm a MBA student at University of Texas. And my question kind of has to do with like consumers and how you help bridge the gap with consumers and kind of get over fears that consumers may have about some of this developing technology. Is it just through customer discovery or how do we actually deal with the fact that some consumers may not want these products?
I think that's a great question, right? So like really thinking about what consumer, I think the key is really to understand the consumer, but then there's also the part where you have different types of consumers, right? Like what is your target audience, and then have the strategy to more be like suitable for them. So I think it's, and I guess the other part of this is also try to bring the connection, right? Really build that connection. So for example, for Impossible Foods, we are trying to produce something that really tastes and smells like the real animal meat, right? So that's something that's not, so that you already have that experience, you have that connection.
Do you like to add a comment or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have 2 points. The first one is food is a culture, so it's usually by generation. It's not like you can change your habits in a year. It's very hard. The whole generation, definitely a person that's changeable. Yeah, so what I would see is like whether the generation shift to that direction, and right now it looks like that. So for younger generation, we do see that more and more people appreciate plant-based meat or sustainable foods, and that's people care about, and that's even make the decision maker like a big factor for them to make that decision, like what kind of food they want to get. So I would do that as a consumer, like different sector of it. And the other one is like for how do we provide our value to the consumer that they are trying to change their habits. It's not that hard. Consumer usually just care about two things, like what's the price, is it tasty? So if the price is at the right price and it's tasty enough, then usually consumers are pretty open to try it. Yeah.
We have a question over there.
Yeah, so I'm going to piggyback on the consumer perspective, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to market with different businesses, but it has to appeal to consumers, because if consumers are interested in your product, then companies have to actually adopt them because consumers are asking for them. I actually don't completely agree with the perspective that consumers only care about price and taste. Because, well, one, for a long time, the meats you're talking about are not going to be cheap, right? So people who are going to buy, and apart from the two coasts in the US, right, where people can afford to spend more money, most of Middle America does not spend that much money on meat. They want to have lots of meat at a very cheap price. So the cost piece is gone. So then you're saying, does meat compare with non-meat products, and is the taste the same? So from all the data that I've seen as a consumer, we're not there yet either. So I think the needle you need to put on the axis is really sustainability, right? And we've talked about the fact that consumers care about a sustainable planet. We're talking about climate change. So how do you influence, I would love to hear, how are you influencing the consumers on that metrics and because it's an emotional connection you have to make. That is really not based on intellectual, that's really getting people to think about, hey, in 10, 20, 30, 50, 70 years, what are you going to leave? So how are you connecting with consumers to move that needle?
Who would like to go first?
I can go first, yeah. First, I totally agree that sustainability is the key for this, that why we are doing this. That's basically our motivation to do this, right? But to be honest, for the mass consumer, for general audience, they don't really care about sustainability. That's what you're saying, and that's what I feel like as well. That's what we observe. So that's why I made the comment that right now, if it's just for general audience, they usually just care about price and whether it's tasty enough. They don't really care about sustainability. Yeah, but that's something we should work on. And what I feel like that every company in this industry, that everyone is actually doing that, is that we need to put it as a number. So we need to quantify the impact that we make. I know it's hard. I mean, most of the people in the industry, we are still trying to find out a standard that how we can calculate those numbers so we can just show up the numbers and quantify it to tell people like how we save on the carbon dioxide emission or greenhouse gas emissions or like the water usage or like something like that. I think that would be a really great and efficient way to let people understand what's the difference when you choose the plant-based meat or alternate meat comparing with like animal products. Yeah. So numbers is my answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of this is, yes, sustainability is definitely important, and I think at Impossible we actually have numbers, right? We do like the LC analysis every year, we publish those. I don't think the numbers themselves are enough, right? So I think it's also about messaging, right? I agree it's not just the price and taste, it is what else the consumers are looking for, right? So with different sectors of consumers, maybe people are looking for different things. Someone would be more conscious on the sustainability side. Someone may be more like health conscious. So there are different like consumer groups, right? So for each one or like for a product, how do you find your own value proposition and how to message that? I think that's the thing we're all thinking about.
Jinchen, you'd like to say a few words? You unmute.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really, really good point for both Phil and your question in the audience. I think for us, like we've really paid attention to, I guess from the consumer standpoint, I think people are getting more educated about where their food comes from. And something that we like to use internally, at least, is this parallel in the energy transition. So it took a while for people to really understand where our various sources of energy comes from and, how it relates to carbon emissions over time. And that was, we kind of learned about it back in the 70s, and it took, almost 50 years for people to come to that point. I think in the food space, we're kind of seeing a similar consumer awareness and awakening take place. And so you see it in the farm-to-table movement, you see it in the restaurant scenes, and it is an affordability question, right? At S2G, we're really conscious, we're constantly looking for deflationary technologies because, fundamentally, we're in a commodities market. And unlike B2B SaaS, you're not going to get crazy exits, right? Nor are consumers willing to pay, there's just not that much money to go around. So, but the key here is innovation and being able to get to a point where you're able to make better products with the technology that we increasingly have access to, whether it's some bio, sort of computational chemistry or genomics, discovery platforms, AI, some of these things are moving forward, and then the consumer is driving the pressure to make things more sustainable and healthier. So that sort of puts the double constraint. So the supply of technology and then what consumers are asking for better sustainability and health.
Okay, good point. Let's go to Ray, but since we are almost running out of time, let's wrap up today's panel discussion. Maybe Ray, you can add some of your comments and add something like how can we reimagine the future food system? Ray.
Yeah, I also want to echo on, the third part, like how do we, the message, the marketing is really the key. I think this is also happening in the conventional protein space, right? So the one of the big companies before they had a really huge success on marketing out the the antibody, like they don't have any antibody or any the sort of like the drugs things they put into the poultry, right? They say it's antibody free. They said it's antibiotics free, and then they're using like nutritional product instead when they grow the birds. That was a really successful marketing campaign for them. They actually were able to make a lot of additional margin on each product that they sell into the market. So definitely, I feel the right marketing message is the key. How do you attract the consumers, the type of TA that you want to target? Yeah, so I really feel that's the case in the food industry, and especially like when you go to when you buy the eggs, when you go to the retail, and there's the market in the way like there's like the pretty normal kind of eggs that you can buy from Trader Joe's and you can buy from Whole Food, and then there's also the cage-free eggs that you can actually get. But the cage-free one is actually they will be able to add a little bit margin, like more margin on that. They charge consumers more, but it's not crazy. It is within the certain threshold. I think the consumer will still be able to. They will still make a decision to make the right decision to pay for that sustainability, to pay for that animal in like the growing, the increasing animal welfare, the suppliers, paid into the attention. So I think it's really about the right message and also the right margin add on to each product. And I think that's with those factors in mind, I think it should be able to happen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ray. How about let's wrap up the panel about the whole food system.
Yeah, I think a few things. I guess I think my main theme would be collaboration, right? So work with your consumers to understand what they want, to collaborate, For example, internally in a company, from an R&D side, driving innovation, from the business side, really sync the two so that there's the main overall goal. And also as an industry, I feel like as a new industry, we should come together and collaborate more and be able to like share more with each other so that we can, as a whole, drive the whole industry move forward.
Great.
Yeah, I'm actually very optimistic about the alternative meat industry. I feel like 2 years ago we ignite the fire. So everyone, a lot of people right now actually really take care about this and start to read more about those articles and start to want to understand what's happening behind like the plant-based meat industry or alternative meat industry. So to me, that's a really great sign that we are moving into the right direction. We attract more awareness, that people really start to think about it. That's the key. That's always the first step. You have to think about it. Then the next thing, maybe at some time point, we'll make some decision that you want to change or do something, right? So that's what I feel like that for the future of the food industry, we are already moving to a more sustainable pathway. And right now, it's just all different companies in the industry doing their own like thesis, trying to like execute their strategy and see how it goes. And eventually, I believe someone or some companies will survive and will really bring our, like the whole food industry to the next level. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Ray, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, sure. I think it's definitely really important for consumers to really pay attention to sustainability, animal welfare, this kind of issue, because this is actually, for the market, for the industry, this is the key driver. This is like this is the demand, right? This is the demand. If the demand grows, then we'll be seeing like the supplier, they're actually getting pressure from the market. So I think that's a key thing. The other part I would say would be, I'll be glad to see more money, more capital like coming into the food industry space. Compared to other industry, other sectors that we are looking at, I still feel that we don't have a lot of food tech or the agri-tech related VC in this segment. I think we need more of them coming to this.
Great. So let's go back to Jinchen.
Yeah, great. I'll wrap up. I think a lot of similar points: collaboration, education, awareness. But I do think, maybe I'll touch briefly on the capital point, given the view I'm representing. I think 100%, right? There's agriculture and food in general is vastly underinvested compared to what the level of investment we need is. I think on the flip side, there's extremely long adoption cycles, because if you're thinking about crop harvest or ingredient testing and formulation, these things take years. And so, especially if you're gathering, yield data or, animal performance, sort of whatever, it just takes a little bit of time because you're dealing with real assets, you're dealing with real animals and plants and the weather. So I think just from my perspective, what we're seeing is actually a gap. If you're thinking about sort of stages from seed to series, B, C, D, E to going public, there's a very clear cliff after Series A, Series B funding, to the point where companies that have proven out their products, have found product market fit, and the technology works, et cetera, they're having a hard time building out the infrastructure required to build, the first of a kind commercial facility to produce the supply that we need to actually fulfill off-takes or the sheer amount of demand that exists out there. So I think on our part, we're doing a lot of work to try to crowd in investors from that perspective. And then I agree with you, Ray. I think mainstream investors find it very difficult to invest in this space just because it takes a little bit of education for investors to get ramped up as well. So where I'd love to see the food and ag space evolve to is a point where investors are adequately educated about the opportunities here too. And they're not just looking at it from a pure commodities perspective and saying, oh, there's too many reasons to say no, but they're actually really excited about a potential future here and exactly what, the critical choke points are, for example, to be invested behind. Yeah, there is a lot of value here, and I think increasingly so because of how difficult it will be to feed everybody and feed people well over time.
And if I may add, since we're talking about capital investment, I think the other point we could, as an industry, look into more would be government support, because sustainability is something the government and that we should be more working with policymakers, and that's something the government's already paying attention to, like the Biden's Biomanufacturing Act, right? Thinking more about getting capitals and support from a government side, that may be another way.
Okay, so let's conclude our panel discussion today. I would like to thank all the panelists for joining us. We will have some time for networking. And thank you, Dr. Yan, Dr. Huang, Ray, and thank you, Jinchen.
Guys.
Okay, thank you for joining with us.
Hey, you want to keep the speakers?
How about we can take a group photo together?